So let's begin sitting. So taking your posture, your meditation posture, whatever that might be, uh, hopefully one that helps you to um, sit upright, sit still, sit comfortably, and have focus. And you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. Nice to get out of the screen world and just um, turn inward and feeling yourself sitting, feeling the body settling, and releasing the shoulders, relaxing the jaw, softening the belly. So these areas where we often accumulate tension, just relaxing, easing, and just checking in with yourself. How are you feeling? We arrive at Zoom experiences out of all kinds of settings. Might be coming right from work or from dinner or talking to people or from being alone. So it's not like sort of driving to the meditation center and sort of feeling like you're preparing and kind of coming in and seeing a group of people sitting together. I think it's worth just taking a look at how you're feeling Friday evening, and letting the breath move into the chest and the belly, those areas where we tend to hold our feelings, and letting the breath open you, soften you there. And when we check in with how we're feeling, it's not in order to fix it or judge it, really about allowing. It's okay, whatever is there. Our feelings are always in flux and dynamic. So with our practice, we just want to be with the felt experience and soften, allow. And even in that attitude, to bring that attitude to our experience tends to bring more ease, even to the difficult feelings. And sometimes we won't really know what we're feeling. It's very common, especially for people new in recovery or new to meditation who aren't kind of used to being mindful of feelings. So it really starts with just seeing what's going on in the body. What we call emotions are largely held in the body. They're certainly triggered and related to the mind and trigger things in the mind. But the body is where the feelings are really stored. And when we breathe into the body, into those spaces in the heart, the belly, we can start to get a sense, and just asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? Might not be an immediate answer to that. Might take a while to tune in there. That's okay. But it is important to start this process. Sort of integral to the whole meditative and recovery processes. Becoming at home with our feelings. That doesn't mean something's sentimental or it's not about some sort of uh, touchy-feely, for lack of a better term, experience. It's really to know what is. This is an area of our lives that's often neglected and doesn't receive enough care, attention. It's just a matter of developing a more sense of more integration between feelings, sensations, thoughts, spiritual experiences. Not so much compartmentalizing, but having a open and full sense of who we are. So the simpler guidance for our meditation is to just feel the breath. If you can feel the breath either at the nostrils or the belly, the nostrils, we're feeling the air, the touch sensation of air coming in and out. In the belly, we just feel the movement rising and falling. So we try to track that in, out, in, out. Not trying to control the breath, not trying to breathe in any special way, just allowing the body to breathe as it will and bringing attention to that experience. And then if the mind wanders, if you lose track of the breath, as soon as you realize that, just coming back. You might take a glance at the thought or the wandering mind just to see what drew your attention. Or we also really want to train the mind to be present. So by coming back over and over, we start to develop the habit of being present. Notice if there are patterns of thought or types of thought that tend to pull you away. Just noticing, not judging or analyzing, just coming to see how your mind works. Can you let go of thoughts one by one as they arise? We aren't responsible for them arising, but once we know they're there, we can let go. right. Again, welcome to everyone. Um, I I just want to acknowledge Gail. Hi, I just got home to your incredible gift. Gail put together an index of my daily reflections book. Is that you have an electronic version of that? Could we put it on my website maybe for people?
I'm not certain. I'd have to talk to you about some details about that. It's in
Okay.
Word. I wrote it in Word.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can turn a Word document into a PDF and then people could download it. But it's really great for me. Thank you, because it lets me find different topics if I want to teach out of it. So that was very kind of you and an enormous task to take on. So thank you. Wow. Yeah. So, and I know those of you who were just came from the retreat, I hope you enjoyed your meditation tonight. We've been meditating for 45 minutes at a time and having 6 or 7 periods of meditation each day. So dropping in for 20 minutes is like, that was easy. And this is really the sweet time right after a retreat. I really felt it tonight. Just a really nice, peaceful place. What a delight. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm at the point in One Breath at a Time, at the end of step 11, a section called Depth of Practice Retreats. It's on page 244 for those who are reading along. And I'll read a little bit of this, and I have the tendency to kind of skip over the more personal details in this and try to get more of the straight Dharma and recovery stuff. So I like to think of the development of my spiritual life as having two major aspects, depth and breadth. In step 12, I'll talk about the breadth of practice as I address the idea of practicing these principles in all our affairs. For step 11, it may be helpful to talk about depth. Depth of practice most commonly is developed on retreat. On retreat, we take some time away from our common daily life and focus exclusively on our inner life and the development of special qualities. Qualities that typically head the list are mindfulness and concentration, but many others grow on retreat as well. Patience, loving kindness, compassion, right view, right effort, faith, wisdom, and more. A typical Vipassana retreat is conducted in noble silence, which means the students don't talk with one another, but speak only during interviews with teachers and during just question and answer sessions. The silence has an amazing effect, helping to quiet the mind and turn our attention inward. I find that people who have never sat a retreat find the idea of silence to be one of the most intimidating when considering taking a retreat. I felt the same way before my first retreat. So I'm going to skip over. Two things frightened me, my knees and silence. Whenever I went to class, I meditated for 45 minutes. I spent what seemed like ages, probably 15 or 20 minutes, struggling with the burning sensations in my knees. I was afraid that a retreat would involve many such meditation, that a retreat which involved many such meditation periods each day would be agonizing. As for the silence, I just couldn't imagine not being able to talk to people. I suppose it was a fear of loneliness. Even now, when people express concern over trying to be silent, I'm not sure what the fear is, but I had it. For days I vacillated, but finally I agreed that I would go. Ironically, I turned out to be right. Many of the sittings were painful for me. Plus, I felt a profound loneliness in the silence. But even though those fears were realized, I left the retreat with a great sense of faith and commitment. Yes, it was difficult, but more important, a vision of a new way of experiencing life had opened up for me. I saw more clearly than ever how bringing a mindful attention to each moment enriched and deepened my experience of life. This was precious, more important than the physical and emotional struggles involved. I felt that on retreat, in some ways, I was experiencing life, real life, for the first time. Yeah, that's a really important piece for me. That you know, I was 30 years old when I took that retreat, and I felt like I had missed a lot of life. That I was kind of discovering this other layer of experience, something more complete, more full. Uh, and that's what real profound mindfulness does provide. As you sit on retreat, mindfulness becomes more and more precise. You begin to notice the sensations of every movement, the subtle shifts of thought and mood. Colors and sounds and tastes are all amplified and clarified. With this mindfulness comes a powerful concentration. During particularly calm sittings, you may feel the sensations of the breath as though observing in slow motion with a laser-like awareness and mountain-like steadiness. The mind becomes so still that you're able to sense when you are just about to have a thought, noticing the vague stirrings that indicate thinking about to happen. And in that moment, you can actually choose not to think. This kind of depth of practice is probably only possible on retreat. Afterward, you might be able to preserve something of this depth for a few days or weeks, but eventually it fades. What we're left with, however, is not just fond memories. Retreats teach us profound life lessons, which can carry into our daily lives in vital ways if we let them. On retreat, I see that my common everyday vision of life is only one version of the way things are. I'm reminded that much of what I believe is just a mental construction. When I remind myself in daily life of that in daily life, I'm relieved of some of the burden of solving the quote problems unquote of the world. I remember that there is a deeper way of seeing things. Practicing on retreat, I see the cyclical flow of practice. One sitting, I'm concentrated, the next restless, later I'm sleepy, and again, I wake up and feel clear and sharp. Retreats remind me that even under the best of conditions, my practice isn't perfect. Retreats teach deep lessons about impermanence, suffering, and not self that get under my skin into my understanding of life and the world. These insights transform my daily experience in subtle and not so subtle ways. In every spiritual tradition, withdrawal from the world, retreat, has an important place. Jesus went to the desert for 40 days. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, vowing to become enlightened. Native Americans go into the wilderness on vision quests. This time of inner solitude opens us to the deeper reality of our lives, of our minds, and of our bodies. Forsaking the distractions of daily life, facing squarely our demons, and finally touching the place of stillness and wisdom inside, we come to know life in a new way, in a way that inspires and invigorates. This gives us courage and faith. People enter retreat to seek guidance and find peace, to uncover personal and universal truths, to find the deepest love and the most profound wisdom, to find forgiveness and joy. Retreat, finally, acts as the foundation for all of our spiritual development. When I wrote One Breath at a Time, it was that that piece there was like one of the things that I really wanted to convey. I'd been around the recovery world for almost 2 decades at that point. And I got sober in '85, and the book was published in 2004, so that was 19 years. And one thing I had seen was that there was very little meditation going on when people got to the 11th step. It was more prayer oriented, and people seemed intimidated by meditation or confused by it. And I had this, experience of doing retreats even before I got sober, um, and so I always felt like people were really missing something. And you know, um, when I got the opportunity to share my experience in this way through this book, I really wanted to inspire people to go on retreats. And so it was that fall. So the book was published in June of 2004, and it was that fall that I taught my first, co-taught my first Buddhist recovery or Buddhism in the 12 Steps retreat with Heather Sundberg and at Vajrapani Institute, which is the place we have usually taught it. We weren't able to go there this year because they're closed. But the retreat that we just had was, we consider it to be in that, that lineage. It's that 18th year that we've done the retreat. Last year we did it virtually, but that first retreat was shorter. We started on I think a Thursday night, and just went Friday, Saturday, and then on Sunday, and there were 13 people. And ever since then, that's grown, and it's still not a huge retreat. I mean, people are afraid of retreats, and it's it is complicated. You have to take time off. You have to have the money. Although we have been able to get a good amount of scholarship money, but I think more than the time and the money, it's the fear and the or we could say willingness to go that deep. And but and I talk about retreats so much, and especially in that book, and really in all my books, and a lot of that is this, just I feel like, just get a taste of this, just get a taste of this, and you will understand what I'm talking about here. It's something different, and I know many of you have been on retreats before, um, but I imagine some of you have not. I don't know. I don't know everybody who's here. Um, but I just really do encourage you, if you get the opportunity, to sit. Now, we designed a form that's not entirely silent uh, in order to sort of create something that blended traditions. So there's more interaction on these retreats. We have a meeting each night, which is just such a beautiful piece. And we also do a little over an hour or so of workshop in the afternoon. So those are things that if you go on a typical Spirit Rock silent retreat, you wouldn't have. Um, but I like that blend, and I do that not just because I want to kind of give recovery people time to share, which is kind of part of the idea of it, but also because I think it's really valuable to try to integrate talking and communicating into coming out of the silence, that when you go on a completely silent retreat and then you come out and go back into the world, it can be hard to kind of bridge those two worlds, and it can seem like, oh well, that's gone, there's nothing I can take from that, or it's too much of a shock sometimes too. And but it allows also, what we ultimately want to do is be able to live this way, practice these principles in all our affairs, to bring mindfulness into our daily lives, uh, much more consistently than just on a retreats or right after retreats. And when we work with a retreat form that's more integrated with communication, that we become more skilled at being more present. Because as I said at the closing today, really, right speech is the major practice of uh, daily life. It's the major spiritual practice of daily life. It's not that hard to, like, do your meditation in the morning, and uh, maybe be mindful when you're walking and things like that. But maintaining mindfulness in your relationships with people, in your speech, is a huge challenge. And it's great to kind of do that in this container, this very safe container, in a very intentional way as we offer it. Uh, in any case, I thought maybe some of the people who were on the retreat would like to say something about it. I don't want to make people feel bad who weren't on the retreat or like left out, like, oh, the club, the cool people were on the retreat. Uh, but but I do, I would like, just maybe to share with folks, or I'd also like to hear how people are doing today. What was your day like after you left the retreat and went back to the unreal world, as we like to call it? Anybody want to speak to that? Steve?
Um, Boy, it was a heck of a retreat. You know, I back to back. I did that 4 days at Spirit Rock, and then
Oh,
2 weeks later, I did this one. And the format, I really appreciated the intimacy of the smaller group,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed the workshop and the dyads and stuff. But I've already kind of gone through the whole time frame, and I can now see a lot of things that I would like to change about myself in terms of my contemplation. I was getting lost in my own stories, and it was kind of messing with my meditations. And so I would definitely kind of work on that the next time I go on a retreat. And quite honestly, coming back, I was like, we were talking about going real slow, and I drove right by my exit to go on 286. Oh my goodness! I had to go up to
Yes.
the next exit and turn around and come back.
That's too much concentration, not enough mindfulness.
Yeah, there you go. But gosh, I enjoyed it so much. It was just a wonderful event, and it's just the next springboard to the next retreat. And I've already making some notes of some things that I would, like I say, change in my own methodology and some of the things that I was doing. And one thing that was troubled me, and maybe you can speak to this, was I talked about it, but oh my goodness, after that first Qigong thing and then the first lengthy meditation, because I usually sit for 30 to 35 minutes or so a couple times a day, but I started getting this pain in my neck, and it just kept intensifying and intensifying and intensifying. So I was just trying to just meditate through that. And I found that to be a real challenge. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about, but I know next time I'll be a little bit more prepared for it.
Yeah, there's a couple things that happen. I mean, first of all, it's a physical challenge to sit still for, long periods repeatedly through the day and day after day. And that built any slight, slight imbalance in posture you pay the price for it. And as someone who doesn't have great posture, I know this well. My upper back, my shoulders, these days, after a couple of days of retreat, start to become very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But there's also sometimes there is also a kind of release of some underlying stress or even trauma. That's they say, I don't have any particular experience of that, but I've certainly heard it from other teachers that people who have trauma, that sort of parts of the body that were kind of related to that, or that where they were holding that, can kind of open up in a retreat, and then it can be that can be difficult. It just the thing is, it's not that helpful to try to solve it. That's not really what we're trying to do. I mean, it's great, like you don't want to invite it, and certainly
I think that's what caused it. I was doing way too much self-evaluation.
yeah. So
That's what created it.
so just we try to just bring mindfulness and really, I say, become absorbed in the sensations, and let them be your meditation, and see if you can become friendly with them, instead of having this like, oh God, I'm in pain, what am I going to do? Be like, oh, okay, this is what's happening right now. Can I breathe with this and really feel this? Because we don't feel pain, we try to get away from it. So what does it mean to actually say, I'm going to turn toward this and investigate it and see what its contours are? Is it heat? Is it heaviness? Is it tightness? Is it and particularly to notice the shifting quality when you take your attention to an area of pain, what you almost immediately always see is that it's not one solid thing. It's this moving thing that's kind of, it can be throbbing and vacillating and expanding and contracting and so you all of a sudden you get this sort of scientific interest and it's like, oh, that's really weird. I never knew pain was like that, and you learn a great deal from that. And it's that then shifts you from this relationship of conflict to a relationship of interest. And that in itself changes the whole experience.
I'll be ready next time.
Good luck. I'm never ready. Helen, hello. I mean, Mary Helen. Is that?
Hi, thank you.
I just cut off your first name, so
That's okay. That's why I always put them both there.
Well, you have two, so take
I
a
know.
pick.
I need them both.
Yes.
I think that I'm always struck by the depth of the meetings at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Yeah.
And they're always, I think they're special because everyone in the room has spent the day in deep inner work.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are always a few shares at that meeting that are particularly deep.
Yeah.
And what I really treasure is the reaction of 25 other people
Mm.
to that share.
Yeah.
There's something, it's what helps me understand a higher power.
Mm.
Because
Wow.
there is something in our interaction, particularly around the struggles and trauma and pain of a fellow recovering alcoholic, that that just brings some, I don't know, I start understanding energy, because the energy in the room, there's just more. There's some almost like a presence that has joined us. And then, of course, it goes away and we go back into noble silence and go to sleep. But I have a really deep appreciation for everything you do to create that, and everybody who attends a retreat. It's like the deepest AA meetings I've ever been to. So I so appreciate that opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm 100% in agreement with you. It really, I get so filled up by those meetings, and there's so much love in those meetings that it's just, whoa. And I mean, Wednesday night, for those who weren't there, the topic of grief and death came through, and it was heavy, it was not light, but it was held in the space of this of the Dharma, of the truth and the wisdom of it, and the tremendous amount of love and care for each other. And, just so rich. I know. I mean, what a way to have a meeting, right? Meditate all day and then share. Oh, that's actually a really good idea. Why didn't I think of that? It's sort of, it's like a perfect, because, just like coming in off the street doesn't, people aren't necessarily focused. So thank you for your appreciation for that. I feel the same way. It's one of the things I love, like whenever I teach retreats, I get to be in those meetings. It's like, oh, that's awesome. You know, no other meetings compare. Kel, another attendee. This is like we're already having a reunion.
Hi there, Kevin. Yeah, I'm just about to cross the border into Oregon on my way home,
Okay.
and I wanted to sustain the recollection a bit and pull over and see if the rest of me can catch up on the journey home. You know, I have to say that I haven't. You know, I read the reading that you just read in your book almost 2 years ago, and I had forgotten it. But I have to say the description you put in there about the pain and the loneliness and all of those descriptions are exactly what I felt, especially at the beginning of the meditations. I felt isolated. You know, I felt my consciousness contracting. And one thing that I try and do with my meditations is to expand my consciousness. And so I was having a really difficult time with that at the beginning. But the last day, it just switched on 180 degrees. And the loving kindness and the metta and that expansive quality just, it just made the retreat. It made it all worthwhile. And I'm carrying that with me as we speak, and I will maintain that going forward.
Thank you.
I know my dear, lovely friend Gail there really wanted to be at the retreat, and I will see her tomorrow night at the meeting in Mount Vernon, and I will fill in on all the details. So anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you so much,
Very
Kevin.
good. Thanks, Cal. And yeah, I mean, that's, you kind of described the arc, and, you know, you got to kind of go through the dark night to get to the light, you know, the awakening part. And I will say that that sense of isolation is another one of the reasons why I like to have some interaction in the course of the day, where there's some moments where you get to be with somebody. It's like, oh, and you step out of your head and you're with someone, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. It just feels like I'm alone. But yeah, so but yeah, I mean, there's this arc of the process, and not always easy, but as you say, you know, it is invariably feels like it was worth it, you know. And I think, you know, again, this is, you know, you're talking about the challenge of this process. And when I said, like, people are afraid to do it, you know, it's like why we don't get 100 people, also because I'm not very good at marketing, but yeah, but anyway. Jeff, hi, nice to see you.
Hi. Yeah. So that was unlike any of the other retreats I've ever been on. I found it at first confusing and a little scary. I mean, I realized on the way home today that one of the big differences for me is that when it's a completely silent retreat, you kind of get to hide a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just put this face on and people won't know that I'm going through this or that. But there's I was doubtful about the outcome, but in the end, extremely, as I expressed to you personally, extremely pleased, and kind of almost a renewal of a faith that was I'd been really hitting a flat spot through the pandemic and in both my program and my meditation, and this has been a great thing for me, and I'm deeply grateful. And we'll talk more about that later. I want to talk about coming back to the real world a little bit. It happened that I took the Route 1 home, as you suggested. And I realized as I was driving back in through Hayward and so on, that I was following the route that I drove 5 times a week.
Wow.
first learned something about how patience functions in the world. Every night at 5 o'clock, I had a truck full of air freight that had to go to first the San Jose airport, then the Oakland airport, then the San Jose airport, and then the San Francisco airport. So at rush hour, I drove to those three locations every night, 5 nights.
Oof.
And I was early in practice and fairly early in sobriety.
Mm.
And it was this great homecoming feeling as the traffic piled up on the bridge. I went, I know about this. I've been here before. The other thing was about the trees. There's the
Yeah.
location we were at this time. I have an affinity for trees.
Mm.
I do. But it might have gone a little too far. I stopped at a nursery along 680 and bought a 24-foot coastal redwood. It's delivered on Monday, and I got to go dig a hole in the backyard.
That's awesome. I love it.
Got to bring a souvenir home from the retreat.
That's going to any lengths, you know?
Well, 24 feet anyway.
So, right, 20, that's the length you will go to, 24 feet.
That's all they can fit on a truck then after that it's crane time, you know.
Right. Have you read The Hidden Life of Trees?
I have not.
Oh yeah, you should read that. It's beautiful. It's
Is that
really
Is
beautiful.
that the thing about the matting and communication with
Yes.
below ground?
Yes.
Okay, I've read excerpts of it.
Yeah, there's an excerpt of it in that book about the environment.
This will be my 5th coastal redwood in the backyard.
Wow, that's
well,
fantastic.
I live on a creek. It's kind of
Yeah.
a replanting of what used to be here, you know.
Right, exactly.
And that and transferring squirrels from where they are to where they should be.
Okay, very
It's my
good.
daily thing. I trap a squirrel and I drive it out to Briones Park and let it go with lots of walnut trees so it stops eating garbage in my backyard. And
Oh, good, very good.
it's a little more expensive and difficult than shooting them, but there's a Buddhist thing involved there. You know.
Yes.
Delighted to see you, and I was delighted with that's just the last thing. Such a delightful company of people.
Yeah.
And I don't mix well with people. Oil and water, not milk and water. But somehow, and your mention of, gosh, we really that moment when our friend Anne talked about her difficulty, it was like watching it all go together, you know.
Mhm.
We all there was so much love in the room, and so much empathy in the room, and it was one of those daily reminders right there, you know. Anybody, anytime, you know.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thank you. Very nice to hear you. Hi, Dolores.
Hi, Kevin. Forgive me for jumping in. I know you asked for the retreatants.
No.
But
We can't have time.
I must tell you what I experienced tonight. I was not thinking of the retreat. I was very, very busy, and it was like 5 after 10, and I went to get, and you were beginning the meditation. In fact, it was exactly when it began to tape. At that moment is when I got on. I experienced something so different tonight. And I was not thinking of you and everybody being on a retreat. I totally forgot that. But I experienced a depth in the Sangha.
Mm.
I experienced it tonight.
Mm.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
It felt like a bliss.
Nice.
And I know I've had lots of days of silence. I used to go away for 24 hours. And I did weekends of silence. I experienced that tonight. And I thought, there's something so different tonight.
Mm.
And I didn't realize until you started to talk about the retreat and invite your retreatants to share their experience. So I want to commend you, and I want to commend the retreatants, because they made the Sangha felt so pure tonight. That's what I
Beautiful.
want to tell you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it is. My wife notices when I come home and after a retreat too. It's like, you're so relaxed. So, yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's a real thing. It's a beautiful thing. And it's interesting talking about the love in the room because for me, I don't really like, you know, touchy feely. I use that term tonight, like the, you know, gushy loving kindness sort of stuff, unless it's coming out of something sort of organic rather than, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be, or I don't know, I'm being, I'm complaining about something that like doesn't exist, um that it's beautiful when it comes out of the silence like that. There's something very, very tangible in that experience that's felt in the space. And I mean, I think we all have moments of that in our lives, but to do it, to have this container of the retreat that sort of tends to evoke it is really nice because it's not something you're just sort of randomly happening because of some situation, but really coming out. It's very much causes and conditions building that up and allowing for that to happen. Hi, Anne. What would you like to share tonight?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Home sweet home.
Yeah.
It's so nice to hear from people. It's
Yeah.
just so, and I'm on my phone because my computer is being stubborn. So I'm like on this little screen. We go from this incredible,
Yeah.
Spacious, lovely awareness and
Oh.
energy. Wow. What Jeff said about the people, the lovely group of people. I just want to reiterate for people who haven't been on a retreat, this one is because of the format and because of the people who come and the depth of, I mean, everybody wanted to be there. You just knew from the first night, we sat, it was just like, boom. It was like, everybody wanted to be there. We hungered for community for so long. But if you haven't been on this retreat, it's just such a great place to start. I mean, I didn't discover this retreat until many years into it. But when I went on it, because I'd been going on the longer retreats, the silent retreats, but when I came to this one, something just cracked open for me. Those dyads and of course, the meetings, but I think in the dyads, it was for me that we were able to, I get what you said, just like let off some steam or just come to some clarity after some cooking, with another person, like a validation and a seeing through the eyes of another. They see you and you see them, and I don't know. So this retreat was something special.
Yeah.
Really was. And something special. So I came home and I've just been talking, and I realized to my husband, and whenever I talk too much after retreat, I feel it in my heart. It just starts to vibrate,
Right,
I'm like, I got to take a break.
Yeah.
So it was nice to come and meditate with you all.
I know. I felt so good meditating. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
And I was teaching the retreat. So, but,
oh yeah.
I think also, I mean, to state the obvious, what makes the retreat like this so special is that we're all in recovery.
Yeah.
And that shared background and that shared experience means that we're not just a group of people who are interested in meditating who could have all kinds of different reasons. We all sort of are coming out of something shared, and and that also means that we understand about honesty and
Mhm.
as well as integrity and sila, but you know, we're okay with sharing our suffering and our pain, as well as sharing our joy and being open and honest in ways that, you know, if you had those meetings and dyads on a regular retreat, you know, nothing, you know, it's not that there's something wrong with people who aren't in recovery. It's just that they haven't been forced to do this, so they don't sort of know how to. It's not as easy for them. Whereas we're used to, oh yeah, I'm
We
an
get it.
alcoholic, you
Yeah,
know, and
we get it.
we can tell on ourselves without shame or embarrassment, because that's just part of our story. Oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic. It's like, oh God, I'm sorry to hear it. You know, other people be like, oh, well, that's terrible. And you're like, no, it's great. I love it. I mean, I
Right.
don't mean you don't. Never mind.
Yeah.
So for when we come together in that way and we're practicing and we have this shared language and shared understanding of what, when we talk about suffering and we talk about clinging and everything, and there's just this, you know, palpable
Mhm.
sense together of yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
And yeah. And we know how to let go.
Yeah, we know how to
Yeah.
let go. That's right.
And so
Yep.
it's, yeah. So, yeah, and also wanted to say something, what you said, you're writing about retreats, how beautiful. I mean, one line that stuck out was why we come to retreat: for guidance, for insight into our personal and universal truth, and
Yeah.
compassion and peace and joy. I mean, that we may not know we're looking for that necessarily, especially if we're new to retreats, because it's so
Right.
crazy, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's it. I mean, forgiveness and joy,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I loved your writing on that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. It
Yeah.
was really
Thanks,
fun.
Anne.
It was really fun.
For those who don't know, Anne was one of the teachers on the
Yeah.
retreat. So, and so on that note, since I'm about to go here, Anne and Debbie will be teaching this class next Tuesday and Friday, because my new routine, I've asked them to take over the first week of each month, teaching it, so that I can have a little bit more space in my life. And actually, I'm going to go visit Abhayagiri on Wednesday and see Ajahn Amaro. And then next month in December, the first week, I'm going on my own retreat, a self-retreat. So I am taking advantage of the space that you two are giving me, and I'm very grateful for you keeping this class going. And I know that many of the people here have already heard you guys teach and know that you've got a great teachings to offer. And so thank you.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie.
Yeah.
And Debbie was the manager on this retreat and did tremendous amount of work and support. And at one point I was like, you haven't been telling us about any problems. She was like, oh yeah, here's my list of problems, but you don't need to know them. I was like, wow, okay. That's what I like, a manager who just takes care of things without bothering me. Beautiful. Such a great job.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a really incredible experience. Number one, actually, this was my first retreat that was Dharma and recovery related. I've not been on one before. I've only been on typical, Vipassana retreats. So it was a beautiful experience, and I want to share, all the little notes and everything. They weren't problems. They were. I didn't receive them that way, and that's, 10 years ago, I would have looked at the note and go, oh, I don't want to open it. I didn't have that sense. They were just waves of opportunity and a joy to be part of the evolution of a situation and to share. And I really didn't want you to be burdened by that underlying thing, those underlying little things that were big things to everyone.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. So thank you for that, because it was also a tremendous growth edge for me to integrate the mindfulness yogi practices when I was able to do that, and then bring it into the managing of the retreat as well. a lot of growth happened there, and
Good.
I appreciate that. And I just feel calm.
Oh, good.
I think two people honked at me on the highway. Only two, that's all. I kept up to speed.
Very good. Well, it was a
Thank
great team, and so Angela should be acknowledged here as well, who handled all the registering, which was, went on for months and months of emails and all kinds of work that she did on that. So thanks to you all, and I will see you guys shortly, whenever I'm going to be back.